ignited the fire. Children were dying. Hope was bleeding. So Solomon knew silence was no longer an option. Have you ever heard of the 23-year-old who smiled at his executioners? He didn't carry a gun that day. He carried something more dangerous: conviction. In today's video, we'll dive deep into the untold story of Solomon Mahlangu, the young freedom fighter who faced the apartheid regime without fear, and whose final words still echo across generations. Stay with me, because by the end of the story, you'll not only know his name, you'll also remember his legacy. Solomon Kalushi Mahlangu was born on July 10, 1956, in Mamelodi, near Pretoria. Raised by a single mother who worked as a domestic worker, Solomon grew up under the weight of apartheid, poverty, segregation, and systemic injustice. His father had walked out early. His mother carried the burden of survival alone. Schools were overcrowded. The system was built to fail him. But even as a child, Solomon stood out. Sharp-minded, thoughtful, and disciplined. Therefore, in a township where dreams rarely survived, his did. The 1970s were burning. The Soweto uprising had just ignited the fire. Children were dying. Hope was bleeding. So Solomon knew silence was no longer an option. He joined the ANC. But not everyone around him agreed with taking up arms. Still, he believed there was no other way. Therefore, he joined Umkhonto we Sizwe, the armed wing of the liberation movement. In exile, he trained in Angola and Mozambique. Not just in combat, but in conviction, in ethics, in purpose. So when he returned to South Africa, he wasn't just a fighter. He was a visionary on a mission. In 1977, Solomon crossed back into South Africa with two comrades. Their goal: to set up underground networks and distribute political literature. They were armed, yes, but only for self-defense. However, in Johannesburg, fate took a cruel turn. A stop-and-search escalated into a gunfight. 2 civilians were killed, but Solomon never pulled the trigger. Yet he was the one arrested. Therefore, he became the regime's scapegoat, a symbol they could sacrifice to instill fear. Solomon's trial was never about justice. From the beginning, the verdict felt predetermined. They used the common purpose doctrine, a legal loophole, to convict him. However, Solomon didn't back down. He stood firm. He used the courtroom as a battlefield for truth. So, when the judge sentenced him to death by hanging, Solomon didn't cry. He didn't beg. He simply stood taller. In his final letter to his comrades, he wrote, "Tell my people that I love them. They must continue the fight. My blood will nourish the tree that will bear the fruits of freedom." But it wasn't just a goodbye. It was a seed. He sang struggle songs in his cell. He comforted others. He smiled. Therefore, when the apartheid state hanged him on April 6, 1979, he didn't die a criminal. He died a legend. His death did not silence the people. On the contrary, it ignited them. Students whispered his name in underground meetings. Artists painted him into walls. Poets turned his final words into war cries. So, across townships and nations, Solomon Mahlangu lived on, in spirit, in art, in defiance. After apartheid, South Africa began to honor him properly. Schools, streets, scholarships. And then, in 2016, the film Kalushi brought his story to the screen. A new generation learned his name. Presidents praised him. Citizens remembered him. But, most importantly, children grew up inspired by him. His story is not just history. It's a mirror to our own courage. What would you stand for, even if it cost you everything? Solomon wasn't rich. He wasn't famous. He wasn't old. Yet, he stood taller than most ever will. Ask those who were there, they'll tell you. Because Solomon didn't die silently. He cracked the wall of fear the regime had built. Teachers teach him. Mothers name their sons after him. Elders still choke up when they speak of him. So, remember this: he was not just a revolutionary. He was hope. Solomon Mahlangu died young. But he lives on. My blood will nourish the tree that will bear the fruits of freedom. That tree still grows. In every free voice. In every protest. In every child who dares to believe. Therefore, we must continue telling his story. Because heroes like Solomon Mahlangu are never truly gone. They live as long as we remember them. If this story moved you, hit that like button, like and subscribe for more untold histories, and drop a comment. Who should we cover next? Until next time, keep seeking truth and remember freedom has many faces. Solomon Mahlangu was one of them.